I'd like to formally introduce Sam Coulstock and Clare from the Institute of Hospitality. Sam is Head of Professional Development at the Institute and Clare is the Youth Council Chair. So thank you both of you for being here today, and over to you.
Brilliant. Lovely. Thank you for us.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, good afternoon everybody, and thank you for inviting us along to meet with you today. We're really privileged to be at such an important conference in the calendar as well. And it's so nice to be at an event where we're all face to face and see each other, rather than on a little screen inside your laptop whilst you're also trying to eat and do stuff and stuff. But also thank you, Craig, for giving us the graveyard shift after everybody's had a massive lunch and full up on baked beans and sausages and bacon and stuff. What they're thinking about is which this guy from London will shut up and go, wait till you hear from Clare. My name is Sam Coulstock. I'm Head of Professional Development at the Institute of Hospitality, and we'll come on to that a little bit later on. My background is not from academic, I'm a vocational background. Left school at 16, started as a chef, done my MBQs, so I wasn't not very qualified, by going to college one day a week, and then done my level 3 in kitchen supervisory, worked for a hotel company called Forte, who put me in a training management program. And then for 13 years, I worked for the Springboard charity. I'm head of business relations there. For the last 5 years, I've been working for Umbrella Training, where I was customer relationship director for them. And the last 4 months, I've been here at the Institute of Hospitality as head of professional development. So a little bit of my background. I do have so when Craig said to me, they're all going to be leaders of academic institutions, I was like, oh, goodness me. You know, what a tough gig that one is. School kids anytime, academic institution leaders, not so much, thank you. So just to make my valuable contribution here, I do have a foundation degree in management, which I've done through an apprenticeship route. So, but I don't have a POF or a doc in front of my name, but I do have that. So that's my claim to fame. And I'll let Clare introduce herself.
Brilliant. So I am Clare Johnson, and I am the first chair of the Institute of Hospitality's Youth Council. So for us, these events sound very scary, as Sam said, when you don't have a doctor in front of your name. But we're really keen to get young people involved with hospitality. So my background is welfare to work originally, so working with ex-prison leavers, people who are further away from the employment market. And during that time, I really found that hospitality was a real welcoming industry to get people involved and really to get people to shine as well. And from that, I moved into apprenticeships, which I felt was my calling card, and specialised in hospitality. So I work for HIT Training, which is an apprenticeship provider here in England that specialises in customer service, chefs, hospitality as a whole. So a very rewarding job. We work alongside Springboard as well, getting people involved. But it's been a real eye-opener joining the Institute, you know, trying to get people who look like me, who we've got a blue-haired person among us, so that's a great start.
Oh, no hair.
Not by choice. But yeah, it's great to come along for things like this and hopefully tell you a bit about how a young person sees what hospitality is going to look like over the next few years.
Brilliant. Thank you, Clare. So what is the Institute of Hospitality? So we're the professional body for the hospitality industry. We're the only professional body. We're a charitable organisation as well, so not a lot of people know that the Institute is a charity. And to enhance that over the next 2 years, we're setting up a bursary fund to fund people who have financial difficulty in joining the Institute through that bursary fund. So we're working on things like that at the moment. We're really there to support the industry with its continued professional development throughout somebody's career in hospitality. So we have around 14,000 members across the globe, and we have a number of branches around the world that really deliver the work that we do essentially into a local regional perspective. And because of that global reach and the membership, we tend to have quite a good view and a good helicopter view really of what's happening on the ground in the industry directly from our members. And that then in turn formates our strategy of how we support and develop the industry and what we can do to do that. We'll come to some of the products we've been launching recently, but one of those main things was really our podcast, which we've just launched. We just dropped our first podcast last month, where we have a fellow, a member and associate on that panel, and we have somebody from an international representation on that as well. And they talk about umbrella subjects really, so we're not talking about hotel revenue metrics in central London, because that only really supports a handful of members. We talk around things like disciplinary or diversity or leadership skills and trends and industry insights on a global scale. So that was our first podcast that the Institute's just recently launched. And we also practice what we preach. So most recently, we've employed 2 apprentices at the Institute. First time in our 83-year history that we have apprentices. And it was something that both the Chief Executive and myself felt quite strongly about, that if we're really promoting development out in the industry, why aren't we doing it in our own organisation? So we have 2 apprentices now, all through HIT training, of course, but that really shows and demonstrates that we like to practice what we preach. The Institute is really there as well as for an individual's own benefit, and you use the Institute as much as you like or don't like. So some people like to pay their subs and just have the post-nominals after their name, and some people like to use the Institute, have the post-nominals and all the other benefits that it brings. And I always refer to the Institute as a bit like going to the gym. The more you use it, the more benefit you'll get. You just don't pay your subs and expect to get fit. You have to go in and actually do something with it. So I found out. And the Institute's very much the same. So, people say, well, I'll pay the subs and now I'm not clever. God, why not? Well, you're not going to get clever just by paying money. You have to actually use what we provide. So that's a little bit about the Institute.
Brilliant. So as I said, I work for HIT Training, specialising in apprenticeships. So I'm really passionate about this. So I started off my career in a beautiful theatre in Belfast, and a front of house position came up for an assistant manager, and it was very much apply, Claire, you'll do great. Couldn't wait. I had loads of ideas, couldn't wait for the interview. And then I was quickly told that they weren't going to interview me because someone with a degree applied. So I wasn't sort of that next step for them. So from that moment, I hated everyone with a degree and went off to get one, but found that it wasn't for me. But now I am currently studying for my level 6 CMDA through an apprenticeship. And for me, it makes a lot more sense. So I'm learning about managing people when I actually manage people. I'm not just talking about what it might look like. And for us at HIT, a big part of it is that entry level to the industry. So yes, degrees are important and hospitality managers are important, but we have this frustration of people saying, I'm just a chef, I'm just a barista. Well, if you weren't here, the industry doesn't operate. So for us, we're really trying to inspire them to see hospitality as a career, and that there's a next step for them to move on through. So we deliver across a huge range of people. We've got apprentices in their 60s, we've got apprentices here 16. But for us, it's about making that learning journey correct for that individual. So we've support for learners who want to get into the industry, who maybe have special educational needs, disabilities, because we're a really inclusive industry, but we need to show that to people or else they won't come to join. As Sam said, not very qualified. I've not heard that for an NVQ, but I'm going to use it. It's very funny. But we're very much about getting hands-on. So when we're talking about plant-based eating, let's get in, let's make seitan, let's do it, because it's a real great chance to get young people together and say, it's okay if you make a mess. It's okay if it doesn't work, because you can do that with us and get that experience and that knowledge and the confidence, because when they go back to the workplace, that's when they really shine. They pick that up. So for me, it doesn't feel like a job getting to work at HIT, but again, we work very closely with the Institute to try and get people to use their membership to attend events like this, log on to the webinars, because the more they put themselves out there, the more they'll get from it.
Brilliant, thank you, Claire. So when Craig gave me the title of the keynote that he wanted us to talk about today, it was all about sustainability of tourism and partnerships between education establishments and employers. And that's why I invited Claire to come along and present this with me, because at the Institute, we're all about sustainability of our membership going forward. So Claire's role as head of our youth council is all about making sure that everything that we do at the Institute has longevity in terms of we're reaching out to our younger members and our youth members, and whether they're students or whether they're entry-level managers that are in their first management positions. So that's why, Claire and I decided to do this as a double act, because we thought it was quite important to have that show of strength, but also in reality, a real life example of how institutions can work to bring in sustainability in terms of its membership and its growth. So the things that we want to going to cover today is talk a little around about the current recruitment challenge. I'm sure this has been mentioned already today, but we'll just give our take on what's happening out there at the moment. What does the future of HLT careers look like? How our view on how sustainable partnerships can work, and what support is out there for both employers and for education establishments. So the current recruitment challenge, well, I don't think you can open the newspapers at the moment or look beyond your nose really at the minute to know that we're in a massive skills and labour shortage, not only in hospitality, but also here in the UK and globally. So we're hearing this from our members from around the world that the labour shortage is high across the globe. Here in the UK, we've got 1.1 million vacancies currently, and accommodation and food services, about 59% of those are in our industry. So a massive amount of vacancies, which is good news, because that means that the industry is open and it's recruiting and it's growing and it needs people back in jobs. The other good news is that there's about 1.6 million people currently unemployed as well, which is a record high for about 12 years, I think. So that shows as well that, there's vacancies on one hand, there's unemployed people on the other. Our job is to try and bring them together. So once we crack that nut, there'll be no problem, everybody says. But of course, it doesn't work like that. About 1.3 million overseas nationals left the UK during the pandemic. That's obviously caused huge amounts of problems with people being able to return and back to jobs that they left. We're obviously seeing an international decline, but particularly here in the UK, of higher education institutions not necessarily having a hospitality school on its own anymore. We're seeing lots more hospitality schools getting submerged into other schools such as business. Something that we're trying to champion at the Institute and trying to lobby government on is around the new T-level qualifications. And this doesn't quite affect you at university level, but may affect your pipeline, and where they're using the T-level to substitute DTECs. So that's fine, but there's they're also trying to remove funding at level 2. So that pathway for a school leaver to go from level 2 into a BTEC, which would be a level 3, is being removed from underneath our feet. So we're campaigning with a number of different media outlets and other associations to really try and strengthen our case to keep level 2 qualifications in place, because they are a stepping stone to the rest of academic study. So we asked our social media audience, we have quite a good strong following at the Institute, about what they feel that a career in hospitality, if that's fulfilling. 100%, not surprisingly, come back and said, yes, a career in hospitality is fulfilling. So we really know we're on to something good in our industry. We know that we have a really good sector. The one thing that I get on my high horse about at the moment with our industry, and it's not you guys at all, but in our industry at the moment, is that I attend so many webinars and speak to so many people, and it's all about we must get out there and talk about careers in our industry, and we must go into schools and talk about careers. Yes, yes, yes. We've been saying this for 20, 30 years. Nobody's actually ever doing anything, and we're talking to ourselves. But the other thing that I think we need to focus on, the industry needs to focus on, is giving our, why are we fixated on careers? Let's just give people really good jobs to do. Give them a really good job. Make them feel like they are a rock star when they turn up for work. Make sure that they feel valued. Make sure that they've got the empowerment to be good leaders in their business. Make sure that they love their job and the place where they work. Because if we can do that, the career element will come. They will fall in love with it. They'll then want to progress their careers. They will then want to go on and do further studies or whatever it might be. But they will stay and they'll get hooked and they'll fall in love with it. I think as an industry, we've lost that, giving them that excitement, giving them that buzz, making them feel like a rock star when they turn up for work, you know, applauding them and giving them an experience. We're so great in this industry at giving our guests experiences, you know, a lifetime that will matter, an experience that matter. Why aren't we doing that for our teams? Why aren't we giving them an experience? The other key challenge I think the industry faces is around our hiring managers, so the guys and girls who employ directly, not the HR teams, not the general managers, because they get this. It's that middle level management in the industry, because they'll have a shift, they'll have a vacancy, which is 5 days a week out of 7, 5 shifts out of 7, whatever it might be. But they'll interview somebody who can only do 2 days, but they're absolutely brilliant. But they'll reject that candidate because they can only do 2 days, they need somebody for 5 days. Why? Why are we rejecting talent? Well, take them for the 2 days, find somebody else who'll do the 3 days. You've got your shift covered. And more hospitality businesses are taking up that mantra. Hire the smile, we'll train the talent. We can't train what's in here, but we can train you to physically do the job. So there are messages that we're pushing out there at the moment to the industry. The good news about apprenticeships is that according to the Youth Voice Census, which has just been republished, 85% of young people on apprenticeships say they were either good or excellent choice of their career option routes. So we know we are good at what we do, we just need to be a bit better and we need to stand out amongst the crowds.
So when we were looking at it, again, I'm talking to people from all different parts of the industry. So we're keen to say that we're not the Institute of Hotels, we're the Institute of Hospitality. So that includes, you know, TGIs, your casual dining, facility services. And for what we've seen since the dreaded pandemic is people have upskilled and they've become multi-skilled. And we're seeing a real benefit from our apprentices being able to look at different parts of the industry. So they might have started front of house and they've taken up a catering assistant position as well. Well, actually, they found out they really enjoy it, and that actually might be a better fit for them. So for us, we're really trying to make sure that people aren't scared of these other revenue streams that we've got. We've had some really good examples of dine at home or, you know, catering supplies that have came up when originally it was just standard restaurant. But what we have to remember as well is that it's great when you're a massive company, but when you're a small business, taking those risks can be quite either costly or quite daunting if you're not sure of it. So we're really trying to inspire people to go out there and find out what help's available for them to diversify in what they do. And 1 in 3 hospitality workers say that there's a lack of training within the industry. And out of that, half of them feel like there's not much career growth. So as Sam said, it's really important to get people engaged from the get-go so they see that there is some career growth there for them. And you made a really good point and said, you know, say when someone's done something well, we forget about that massively. And especially when we're looking at things that, you know, we are understaffed at the minute, it can be quite demanding. You know, the saying was, the world is understaffed, be kind to those that showed up. So that's something that I've taken away from it. And for us, we need to understand that as staff, so maybe as new managers or middle managers, we need to change. Normal doesn't exist anymore. It's the new normal. And that isn't just because of the pandemic. I think our customer base is definitely changing within hospitality as well, and within the industries that we're working in. On to the next slide, Sam. So, did I mention that I'm doing a degree? Because I am. I wanted to have a look at how customers' needs are changing and how that might affect me as someone who's directly working with them within the industry. So we run a coffee and conversation catch-up every other Thursday in the month, and the last one was about technology. There was a clear divide in the room of who liked technology and who didn't. So we had a real consensus of, we're missing that personal touch. I don't like technology. I don't like AI. We had some people who were a bit more techy who were saying, no, it's great. It's great. If you can track what someone does, you can put in their mini bar what they want. To me, that sounds pretty smart. But also, do I want someone knowing what I drink so that they put it in the mini bar? So there seems to be a real loggerhead about technology. But what we came up with is, they don't need to be two separate things. You can use technology to give a really good personal approach to your customers. And for me, when I worked in service, that was the best part of the role. I loved it when someone remembered me as Clare, and when they came back, they wanted to talk to me. That's the part of the industry that I loved and what I wanted to stay in for. And we need to make sure as well that we don't get confused with the data and the customer, because I think a lot of companies were focusing on what data looks like and what that says about someone, but it's absolutely invaluable to speak to your customers, say, what did you think? Tell me about it. If we don't have those conversations, we don't know what we're trying to prepare. And we will send this out, but you can't really see it there now. But the stats of what you think people are after are crazy. So when we were looking at someone selecting a hotel, at least 50% of them wanted to know what the video conferencing and mobile data was like before they would make that decision. So you can give the best service, but if your Wi-Fi is not up to scratch, people aren't going to come. And for me, that's a really important thing, taking it forward into the industry. So looking at the customers, I wanted to break that down. So I'm doing my assignment at the minute, and I started to look at the different generations within the workforce. So it might be hard to believe, but I'm a bit annoying at work. And I'm always challenging things. I'm always asking, well, why are we doing that? Why don't we try this? Can we do this? And it is annoying. But what I would like to say is that's my generation. We're all trying to make a stamp, and we're all trying to show people what we're made of, because it's competitive, it's hard. But how do I do it in the right way? So for us, I've really focused on, just because we've got FIHs who look young, definitely.
Thank you.
But
the
youth council's not trying to wipe out the people with all the knowledge. Why would we do that? You've done all the experience, you've got all the knowledge. What I'm going to do is trying to steal that and put my spin on it. So for us, it's really about understanding how the different generations work and what I can take from them. Let's go on to the next one, Sam. So I did a little bit of research of what our customers would look like if they were broken down into generations. And the most surprising thing to me was Generation Z and baby boomers are the most similar, even though they're the furthest apart in age. So for us, if I'm looking at my customer base and what I can get from them, we're saying baby boomers are the people with the money. I'm not sure whether that's true or not. But they're really focused on that in-person experience. And actually on that call we had the other week, the people who had that perception about personal touch and customer experience probably fitted into this generational bracket. And they want to feel appreciated as a customer. And I think sometimes we were just talking about, I've got pink hair and bits of metal in my face. I mightn't look exactly like what a certain hotel would want me to look like. But that's about me trying to understand, well, where do I fit within the industry? And I know I can give a really good customer experience, but who's going to appreciate it? Got Generation X, so we research everything. If they find something and they like it, they're going to stick with you. So if you can get it right, you've bought them in. So for me, that would be a really important touch point for them. And they're really good on social media. I am that person who will instantly go on Twitter and say, meh, if something hasn't went right, because that's how I know I can get that interaction with the employer. So millennials do everything on mobiles. That's a really important thing that I mightn't think that in my entry level or junior management position that I can affect, but actually I use that service quite a lot. So my feedback is going to be invaluable to my senior management team or my senior leadership team to get my feedback. They also like doing their own thing. They don't necessarily want people to constantly say, do you need this? Would you like that? Can I show you this? And for me, that was, I guess, a bit of a shocker. They are the people who love a self-service checkout at Tesco's. And they don't care if you take their data. That's fine. They'd rather you do that background and they get a better service without having to speak to anyone. And then finally, Generation Z, which was the shocker for me. They really like interacting with people. So we think that young people are constantly on their phones and not engaging, but actually they're really good communicators, and they're going to be a really valuable piece of feedback for me as a manager to find out what I can do to change. They want to get it right away. So we find this when we're recruiting people into the hospitality industry as well. So I recruited in 3 lovely chefs who promptly phoned me and told me the kitchen was too hot. Which is, I thought was pretty common in kitchens, but they wanted to be on the pastry section. They wanted to be doing the lovely stuff with tweezers from the first week. That's not how it works. We need to serve our time before we get that. And as I said, they will always want to give you feedback. So for me, our apprentices will always tell us, doesn't matter whether it's good, bad, or in between, those are the people you want to speak to. So when we looked about sustainability, we couldn't look at it without looking at the goals. And for me, I wanted to take a few things out of this. So as a training provider, we teach culinary classes. And a few weeks ago, we did a great session in the centre of London where we did street food with a vegan offer. And the kids came in and absolutely ran our tutors around the place. They gave us a run for our money, but their families came in and had food with them. And the families openly said, we wouldn't have done this because A, we can't afford it, and B, we just would never do this as a family. So it was great to see that we can have some impact on the social value in an area. And again, we get to donate all of that food. We give it to a women's refuge. We give it to different food banks. So from just training apprentices, we've made a bigger impact than just giving someone a skill. If you want to just go on to the next one, Sam. So I picked out a couple of things that I thought were important. So median pay within the industry for a person like me is slightly higher than it was pre-pandemic. Not massively higher, but it's heading in the right direction, which is hopefully something we're trying to get people to see. A big battle for us is mums and dads within the industry. And I think it's something that globally doesn't have the same perception. So in France, you know, hospitality seen as a great industry, some prestige. I think sometimes in England and the UK especially, mums and dads don't want their babies going into hospitality. It's long hours, you don't get treated well, you don't get paid well, so we need to change that perception. And skillful workforces, we spelt skillful wrong, so it shows you how skillful we are. It allows that cross mobility. So in a million years, I should never be here. I came from a council estate in East Belfast, so the not nice version of the accent you heard earlier.
Taxis waiting outside.
we'll subtitle it. But I never would have got to do this if I hadn't have got involved with hospitality. I never would get involved with upskilling other people unless I had my job in the theatre. For me, we've got a really good high percentage of women within the sector, and for us that's a really good chance to lead. I'm sure the ladies in the room will agree that sometimes it is hard to be a front runner and take that leadership within an industry. We see a really good percentage of it within our industry. Worldwide, 1 in 11 jobs are going to be hospitality. So if you can get that experience, we're really trying to get people to say, you know, you don't always have to follow that same career path. You don't have to go chef, sous chef, head chef. You can go chef, development chef, you can do whatever. And contribute to urban renewal is a big one for us as well. So we work with the big companies like Compass, Serco, Sodexo, but actually we work with gastropubs where someone has started off as a pot wash when they were 15 and they've upskilled themselves right up until a GM, do a head chef, whatever that might be. It's kept them in their area, it's kept them earning well, and again, it's about keeping that business sustainability for them too. Smarter, greener cities. So we deliver a lot of what we do virtually now as well, less traveling. But hospitality is such a big impact on what green looks like. We've just launched a piece with the NHS around training their chefs. And obviously there's a massive commitment to looking at what the NHS will be carbon neutral by 2040, I think they said. But we played a big part in that because wastage is applicable to every chef. It's not just to someone running a data spreadsheet in an office. I can have a direct impact on that. And as I said, taking climate action, we're a big part of that. But one thing about our industry, and it's a perfect example of it today, you don't have to just stay there. You can move about. We get the skills to go anywhere, but we need to get better at having that joined up approach. So it's great as part of the Youth Council. We had someone on from Ghana the other week. We've got our Sri Lankan team coming on, and we're hearing things that are affecting them, but maybe not affecting us currently. But we're getting to have that conversation that we never would have if we had just stayed in our box. So that was what was really important to me in terms of sustainability.
Thanks, Claire. So when we then look at partnerships and sustainability partnerships between education and the world of work, what makes that successful? And you probably all know in your own institutes, you have your favourite employers and you have employers that are a little bit harder to work with, and you have some employers that are impossible to work with or totally unengaged with what you're trying to do. I spend a lot of time in businesses trying to engage and work with employers on a number of different projects to get them engaged. And the overriding thing that always tends to come back in that feedback is that what's the long-term return on investment in this partnership, no matter what it might be. And I think sometimes we're so keen, we've got a new project or we've got a new activity or a new course to sell or you know, whatever it might be, that we just go full guns blazing into the employer and going, hey, I've got this great solution for you, without actually listening first to find out how's it going in that business, where are their challenges, and then you come back to them with the solutions. I find has always been the best way to gain that long-term partnership with people, because then you build that trust with that employer to say, yeah, I understand you, they understand me, they've really come up with a solution to try and help me overcome that solution or that problem, and they'll work on it together. Now, and I think that's also really important, that whatever institution you're from, that you're really in tune with the needs of your employer. And again, that comes down to that listening skill. I don't think we're very good at listening in this industry. We like to talk and we like to tell and we like to show off and have our our peacock feathers on display a lot. But a lot of what we also have to do is listen. We listen to our guests and find out what their needs are. Let's listen to our employers and find out what their needs are. Let's try and find them some long-term solutions. And at the moment, and I'll come on to this in a minute, is short-term here and now solutions that they might be able to find. Working on that long-term strategy will really get them to see there's a long-term return on the investment in that. So a really good example of that is about 4 or 5 years ago. I was up here in Derby. I worked down, it was a college, not the university, because it was another round building. I thought it was downstairs and realised no, it was actually the college in Derby, where we hosted something called the Big Hospitality Conversation. And that was a partnership of a number of associations led by the British Hospitality Association. Whitbread, Compass Group were behind that. I was working for Springboard at the time. And there we were getting business leaders to talk with students about hospitality around a table. And we had that big conversation. We had pledges from the businesses that came to that to pledge for work experience, they pledged jobs, and they pledged apprenticeship placements. Over 60,000 opportunities were created by those 10 big conversations we held around the UK. Now that was a massive partnership operation that needed people to say, needed business leaders to agree to give up their time to come and speak to young people. What was the point of that? Well, okay, Patrick Dempsey, the chief executive of Whitbread, phones you up and you say, he tells you to come to this meeting and you go, yeah, okay, Patrick, I'll come. That helps. But ultimately, the business leaders could see that they were engaging with their future, with their businesses, with their brand awareness, and that they would then, as a result of that, pledge and sign there and then on the day that they would create jobs for young people, they would create an apprenticeship, they would give work experience opportunities, and then we would get them to come up and stick that on the wall to say, look, I'm the hotel manager of Hotel A down the road, here's my pledge, I'm going to do that locally. And those partnerships are then formed and nourished and developed because of that inspiration of actually meeting the beneficiary right there in the room with them. And that power of listening really, really worked. So 85% of people that we surveyed believes that the hospitality industry needs to work on its sustainability in terms of partnerships to help attract more talent. We can't just dip in, dip out. You know, if we're going to go and talk to schools, we can't just use that as a dip in, dip out opportunity. We need to have long-term relationships with our education partners and employers. So how can you guys right now help our industry in this talent crisis? And it is a crisis. We're absolutely at tipping point, I think, of the industry potentially collapsing because there isn't enough labour in the labour market. Yesterday, I was telling Claire I had a meeting with a hotel in London, a 5-star hotel in central London, quite a famous hotelier, and she was telling me that she cannot look beyond the end of tomorrow at the moment. I don't care, Sam, what's happening next week in my business on the books. I need to sort out tomorrow first. And that's a real challenge right now that our colleagues in our industry are facing. And we, as a call to arms, I think should be doing everything in our possible power to help those businesses right now, because that will pay back dividends in the future, because they will remember in their crisis, in their time of need, you came to their aid and you tried to help them in whatever capacity that might be. So to think about that, think about your employers you're working with, reach out to them, see if they're all right, even if it's just go and have a cup of coffee with them and let them let off some steam, moment, I call it, and that made them feel better. You know, we've got a moral duty to look after the people in our industry, not just the people that we work directly with. So that's one thing. Help them with also seeing what's going to come around the corner. You know, we've got some of the best brains in the world sitting in this room right now and dialing in from wherever you are in the world. Use your brain power to help our colleagues in the industry right now. And that's my plea. Please go and help them, because they don't know, they can't see the wood through the trees at the moment. And that's a plea from a general manager at a 5-star luxury hotel in central London who literally cannot see beyond tomorrow. Now, that is not a position that a senior leader in our industry should be in. She should be strategizing for the next 5 years. She's worrying how she's going to get 20 staff in to run a function that she's got in a ballroom tomorrow night. You know, so help them see what might be coming down the future. Use all the schools, all your resources, everything that you've got, and put it in a simple, clean and understandable format for them to read quite quickly. Don't send them some great big long research paper, because they ain't going to read it because they ain't got time. But please send them something to say, look, are you aware that this legislation is coming in? This is moving, that's happening. You know, let them see some light at the end of the tunnel, but at the moment they can't. So that's my plea from her to you to say, can you help in whatever way you can? But beyond the current crisis, once we come out of this, and I firmly believe we will, and we will come out stronger, because we've always come out of these crises, whatever it as stronger industry than we was going into it. Go back to those partnerships and look at it again to say, how can we help these our employer partners have that competitive edge? How can we go back to being a competitive edged industry, not just against each other, but against other sectors out there in terms of labour trends, but also in terms of customer trends. So I know you guys are really good at doing some research on customer trends and where customers are going, food tourism. Share that with your employer partners, because they will really value that. What can they be doing in their businesses to give them a competitive edge, and put Britain, or wherever they are, we'll use Britain as an example, back on the map as a #1 tourist destination. Because if we can do that, everything else will follow. And we really play an important part in that journey for them. How are we doing on time?
Probably want to.
We've got 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
Wrap up, see if we can
Cool.
open up some discussion.
Perfect, excellent. So just very quickly, I'll pull up on what we're doing in terms of CPD at the Institute. So these are based on the United Nations Sustainability Goals that Claire touched upon earlier. And we've developed the 5 pillars to hospitality management. Now you could quite arguably tell me that these are management 5 pillars. I'll just put the word hospitality in them because it's the same industry, surely. It's the same things we're trying to do is manage people. It's the customer, the guest, leadership team, business and self-care. They're our 5 pillars that we're basing all our continued professional development on for our members going forward. So everything from our e-library and e-journals, right through to our podcasts, our webinars, our coffee and conversations, will format around one of those themes each month. So each month we'll have a theme for the next 12 months from January, and our CPD will be based on those 5 pillars. And then we've got the actual activity, the actual output. So our above and beyond events, our in-person networking events with a panel debate in the middle of that. They're a couple of hours. We're taking them around the UK. Although our next one's in London, but the one after that's in Birmingham, and then we're in Manchester, Scotland, and Cardiff. Cardiff earlier. We've got Passion for Hospitality is back. So those of you that are universities that have student membership with the Institute, the end of November, Passion for Hospitality, our student debating competition, as it started off as, is back, bigger and better. It's a careers activity as well. And we've opened that up to colleges, apprentices, from across the UK. So a really exciting event that we're hosting. Every other Thursday, as Claire mentioned, it's our In Conversation drop-in session. You don't have to be a member of the Institute to drop into that. They're getting really well attended. They are an online networking, coffee and conversation type activity. And each session is basically around the theme of our 5 pillars. And then I'm in is our podcast, which is hosted by Phil Street, who has his own podcast called Hospitality Meets. I'm in is the Institute podcast. Again, it's free to the whole industry, but members of the Institute get it 2 weeks before national release. So it's available on all the platforms where you normally find your podcasts. So
Very cool stuff. Very hip.
And last plug for the Institute, I guess, is our accreditation program. It's been going for about 15 years now, I believe. We accredit and we also endorse both training programs and academic qualifications globally. And that goes through our professional review panel, and your accreditation lasts for 3 years. So last quote from there, and I think it's, you've heard my plea, hands and knees, praying for you to help where you can. But if we always do what we've always done, we'll always get what we've always got. So we really need to change things up. We really need to make inroads in what we're doing. And that's us. So happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you to Sam and Claire. We have 12 minutes left of this session, so we should open up for discussion. And we'll start with Sarah.
I have to apologise to my colleagues though, because it's a very UK-centric question, so apologise to everybody internationally. Claire, I really feel your passion for apprenticeships. I'm a great advocate for apprentices. And you say that half of the people that you spoke to felt that there was a lack of career growth in the industry. Sam, you talked about retaining talent and researching future trends. So why hasn't the hospitality sector been able to develop a level 5 and level 6 higher apprenticeships specifically for the sector? Because they haven't been able to write the standards. We as a universities have been desperate to offer hospitality degrees, particularly around apprenticeships. And there's been a complete lack of progress there. And I feel that would actually give the sector an opportunity to retain their talent and also to attract people to careers, especially as a lot of UK universities are struggling to keep their hospitality degrees going. We need something for the future because you will not have a future leader. And I spent months talking to industry around developing this with total lack of interest from the industry. So when you're asking us to help change things and shake things up a little bit, the industry aren't listening to some of the ideas that perhaps are coming out of academia. So whilst we need to listen to industry, we would like industry to listen to us sometimes, not through large academic papers, but through ideas and initiatives that we have.
So the reason why I asked Una earlier about how it looks in Northern Ireland was because I feel like I was one of the people who fell through the gap. Yeah, so I went to do, marketing. I didn't really have an interest. I just sort of thought that's what I should go and do at university, because I knew I was academic, but I knew I didn't want to do something that wasn't involved in people. So I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think where we struggle, so as a training provider, and probably as a university as well, we've got these trailblazer groups that go out there for apprenticeships. And I think sometimes the training provider, or maybe the university, isn't always the first person to the table. They like to centre it around employers a lot of the time. So I think that's probably one of the reasons why it's hard to get that through, because the employers need to be the people asking for it as well. So it needs to be a couple of those real big hitters to say, this is what we need, this is how many people we would be putting on this apprenticeship. So I work a lot on the procurement with some of the NHSs, with what they deliver and what they've got out there. And the driving force seems to be the trust themselves, or the employers saying there's a real need for it in the industry, and having that data set behind it to say why, but also being very confident in saying what they see those numbers undertaking the programme would look like over the next 3 to 5 years. Sam, you've probably got far more experience.
Yeah, I mean, my experience with degree apprenticeships, especially for hospitality, I would absolutely love a hospitality degree apprenticeship at level 6 and level 7. And when I worked for a training provider, obviously we couldn't deliver that. We could only deliver up to level 5. So we started partnering with the University of Surrey to look at starting to develop that. And before I left, we'd got quite some way down the road. I think the problem you're facing there comes back to the industry being so fragmented and not speaking with one voice on a specific issue. So in my role, I'd be happy to partner with you, work with you on trying to bring those voices together and try and come together with one voice to look at creating a degree hospitality apprenticeship, because I think also the employers don't quite probably understand how it works, because like Claire, I spend a lot of time in talking to employers about how the levy works, all of that sort of stuff. They just didn't get it. Some do, and obviously do really well. And I think probably at the moment, they probably haven't got the capacity, the brain power, or the energy at the moment to focus on that. even though that's what I'm saying, that's what the thing down the road that could be the solution.
Yeah.
Well, there's going to be no golden bullet, the silver bullet that's going to solve the problem, but that is one of the keys that will hopefully unlock a whole new talent pool or retain the talent pool as
The
well.
research that I did with the sector is that they're only interested in upskilling to level 3 particularly, because they saw the short-term advantages of that, but they weren't looking at the long-term issues. And one of the issues as well is if you look at the level 4 standards, they are so complicated and so in-depth, but I don't think the Trailblazer group knew how to move from those level 4s to level 5 and 6 without perhaps engaging with some educators to help them do that, and they weren't willing to do that.
We were just talking earlier as well, it works on the culinary aspect too, that there's a fantastic level 4 for senior culinary, but it's a very specific job role that you need to be in to be able to develop that. And we were just talking about, it's not the way it was to say, your head chef comes up with your menu, comes up with, what's seasonal, what's, it comes from a food platform in a massive company in a small team. And so the opportunity for people to undertake that training sometimes is limited because the job roles aren't out there for it. So I completely agree. But I would say that the hospitality manager does get quite a big uptake with ourselves at HIT. And we see it the other way around as well, that sometimes there's too much of a focus on the levels 4 and 5s and nothing on the 2, because the level 2s are harder to keep people involved because typically they're younger, they're newer to industry, they've probably got other opportunities for them. So the retention with a level 2 apprentice is probably a bit more difficult than it would be for a degree level or level 5. So I think what you're saying there is it comes from both ends of the spectrum on apprenticeships for us anyway.
But happy to continue that conversation.
Yeah, sure.
And from the Institute's point of view.
Maybe next year we'll be saying.
If
we say we've got a meeting, I think that'll be progress.
No, I don't think so. Are there any other contributions?
Yeah, I'll do a quick one. Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. Very interesting. And I was interested in your point about the staffing crisis and sustainability and all of that. And I would like to be that general manager that you spoke about in London. But I don't think that problem is unique to London. It's certainly a global problem. But if you ask a lot of the young people and people going into hospitality, a big reason behind that, I think, is the salaries and the conditions, right? And that is going back to your point about supporting and all of that, and the education sector can provide all of the best training and qualifications and professional graduates who will expect to command a higher salary because they've invested so much in their formal education. But yet the industry in most places anyway still remain fixed with kind of a stereotype of having not fantastic work conditions and not amazing salary or package, whatever word you want to use. So do you think this current and growing staffing crisis is going to put new pressure on the industry, and will that finally change? I saw there was new minimum wage announcements this week in the UK, and yet for that younger sector, 16 to 22, where you have a lot of those entry-level positions, there was not a change. Remain down. So isn't that part of the issue?
Yeah.
There's also that balance. Well, we were just talking about it last week, about the difference that those large employers have. So Costa have, given a pay rise of 5% for all of their team members, which is fantastic if you're Costa. But if you're a local, pub, restaurant, whatever it might be, you don't have the capacity to do so. But we looked at a case study in Norwich where they have a restaurant that they have reduced their opening hours. So they've got rid of their Mondays and Tuesdays. Their chefs only work 4 days a week. So they work longer shifts, but they get more weekends with their family and to do their own thing. And they've managed to recruit 10 chefs in the past sort of 6 to 8 months. and that's something they never thought they could do. But what they did say is a part of that cost has to be absorbed by their customer. So they haven't been able to save money by doing this, but I guess what I would look like as a customer, I would rather see a happy team. I would rather have a better meal and pay a little bit more. But I think it's on employers, but I also think as a nation or as a customer, we need to be aware that sometimes that will come back to us as well, possibly.
I would also say money isn't everything. Salary, you can throw, Costa can throw 10%, 5%, 2%, whatever, at their employees to think that that's going to make them stay. And it might the first month, and then afterwards, it soon gets absorbed in your everyday spending, that pay increase. So I think it's a matter of a whole policy approach of how you approach your employees and the flexibility that they want, because guess what, they have a life outside of work. Who knew? They want to go and have tea with Aunt Mildred on a Wednesday afternoon, and they have a hobby, or they want to study, or whatever it might be. And employers need to have that flexibility and that making sure that that job that they do, that they feel like rock stars when they turn up. And it's not just about giving them money and salary. It's got to be more than that these days. And we know from the millennials and the charts that Claire's shown that it's not about pay. Pay is not going to buy you loyalty. People work for people. We know that, old hat stuff. But let's just go back to those basics. And I think we just get caught up in that whole salary. Absolutely, 100% agree. We should be paying our team members more. 100%, right? Especially those in housekeeping, those hidden heroes in our businesses that have been underpaid and undervalued for so long. Too right, they should be on £15 an hour, and too right, they should be paid more than being paid more than the receptionist, because they're critical in the business at the moment. When you'd find a hair in your pillow, that was bad. Now it's here bad. It's really bad because of what COVID's done. So we really need to value our housekeeping teams and absolutely pay them more. And it's not until owners of these businesses, not the management teams, because the management teams will always, I think, push for the highest salaries they can get for their teams. It needs to be the owners and the investors in these businesses that understand that.
Yeah, there's certainly a big scope for innovation there in the way that staff are recognised. And while money is not the only thing, if you go to a private school and invest 50, 100,000 in education, you want to return on investment.
Absolutely.
And part of that is the overall package, and in the overall package is the salary.
Absolutely.
But there's scope for innovation in that area.
Yeah.
More sustainable.
Great, Sam, thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.